We are now talking basketball with DraftKings contributors Garion Thorne, Nick Friar, and Matt Meiselman, who are all wearing the exact same outfit.
What is going on?
That's what happens when we get sent pieces of clothing from DraftKings.
Free stuff.
Like, you're lucky we weren't wearing that DraftKings City.
It's a fine sweatshirt, high quality, and what I love about it the most is it doesn't look like something you got for free. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because it's so stylish.
I decided, they asked me what size I wanted, and I was like, I'm going to get a medium because I'm pregnant. So I was like, I'll get a medium.
That's great.
And it's
for you.
Way too big. So.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
I look
still got
ridiculous
a few months to go.
But back to the show. This is NBA Building Blocks. So who are you building your lineups around at the following positions for tonight's 13-game NBA slate?
Holy crap, that's a lot of games.
Yeah, it's a lot of games. So who are you going to build around at center, Garion?
I mean, first, I just want it to be known that a medium is also way too big for me.
Yeah.
That's how in shape I am.
Yeah.
It's really big.
Let's talk about someone who should be in shape because he's been running around a lot the past 5 games, and that is Pascal Siakam, who basically doesn't come off the court anymore. The Raptors basically ran a 6-man rotation in their loss to Miami on Monday night. Maybe that changes a little bit if Gary Trent Jr., who is questionable for this game, is actually available. But right now, Nick Nurse seems very willing to just shorten his rotation in the middle of January, which is not something a lot of coaches would be doing right now. But Siakam has essentially looked like the version of himself from 2 years ago where he was second team All-NBA. His shoulder seems like it's back to 100%. He scored over 45 DraftKings points in 5 straight games, a span of time which he is averaging 40.9 minutes per game. I mean, this is really just a volume play at this point. He's $9,100. The matchup isn't even that great. Dallas's defense has been fantastic across the last 2 or 3 weeks, but Siakam's had a triple-double. Right now, in that same 5-game span, he's not just leading the Raptors in potential assists. He's 8th in the NBA in potential assists per game. He had 5 steals in his last matchup against the Heat. He really just checks every single category right now, and if he's going to continue to hover around $9,000, I think he's just someone you have to consider on every single slate.
All right, Nick, who do you think you have to consider at center?
Well, I know we got the super centers that you're going to be looking at: Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. And if you're going to go with one of those guys, I would say Jokic is going to be that guy tonight. But I'm with Garion. I'm kind of going to go in a little bit of a cheaper range, but still at 9.5K, I'm going to go with Cat going up against the Hawks. I know he just went sub 40 DK fantasy points in his last time out, but that's the first time in a long while that's happened. This game has the highest total on DraftKings Sportsbook tonight, going up against the Hawks, and the Hawks are not good against opposing centers either. They've given up the 8th most fantasy points to centers this season and the 8th most rebounds to opposing centers this season as well, which to me, that's a little more important for Cat too, because now we're talking double-double and getting a little bonus there.
Nick, that is very nice of you to put a few pictures of your dad behind you to honor him.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I got him. It's like kind of like before and after too. It's like a little bit of a glow up, if you will. But I appreciate him. You know, if you can't love him at this point, I get confused with how Zoom works. If you can't love him at this point, you can't love him.
Hey, Nick, hook us up with a forward you think is worth building your lineup around.
So normally I'm not looking at these two guys, even though I do tend to watch the Celtics quite a bit. But Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, Tatum is at 9.4K and Jaylen Brown is at 8.6K. I think Jaylen Brown's a little bit more of an accent piece tonight if you're trying to get somebody in that 8.6K range. But if you're looking at a guy who you want to build around more so completely, kind of start your lineup with someone, Jason Tatum is going to be the guy for me at forward against the Hornets, because this is another pace-up spot for the Celtics, one of the high, well, actually not as high a total as you would expect for a Hornets game on DraftKings Sportsbook, but still, you always get that opportunity for this to turn into a bit of a blowout, or at least a barn burner, I should say. But the Hornets are one of the worst teams against opposing forwards in terms of fantasy production this season, particularly against opposing power forwards too, and Tatum kind of goes between the two. They're actually the worst against opposing power forwards. So Tatum would be my guy. If you're trying to get a forward that you're going to start your lineup with tonight, Jason Tatum's the one.
All right, Maddie, hook us up.
I'm going to go right back to the Jazz. With Donovan Mitchell out, I think that playing a whole lot of Utah guys will be a popular strategy, but there's so much expectation for fantasy points across the board with this team that you probably need someone. And if Jordan Clarkson is the guy that everyone's playing, I think we just go over to forward and look at Bojan Bogdanovic at 5,800. My guess is he'll be relatively popular, but not to the extent of Clarkson, not to the extent of some other cheaper players on the slate. So Bogdanovich at 5,800, it's just, I think he might be the guy that benefits the most in terms of scoring opportunities, aside from Clarkson on that Jazz team with Mitchell out. And if Clarkson is the guy that everyone's playing, I think this is a decent pivot. But either way, 5,800 is too cheap. I think the matchup is great, and not having Mitchell there just kind of means everyone on Utah is underpriced.
All right, Garion, who's got a good matchup tonight at the forward spot?
Yeah, I won't spend too long on it because I'm just going to mirror what Nick was talking about. But I think it's Tatum at 9,400. Generally speaking, I'm not someone who goes, oh, this guy scored this many DraftKings points against this team 3 months ago. It's relevant now. But Tatum dropped 65.75 DraftKings points against the Hornets, and I think that's relevant because a lot of people have done that against the Hornets. They're just a fantastic matchup. As Nick talked about, they are a high-paced team, second fastest pace in the NBA. They're also a terrible defensive team. They have the 5th worst defensive rating in the NBA. You can't ask for much more than that. Tatum's been pretty good lately. He's been doing a little bit in secondary categories, which is really what you need from the guy. You know you're going to get 25 points. It's a matter of, can he hit 10 rebounds? Can he rack up 5 or 6 assists? And he's been doing that as of late. And much like Pascal Siakam, he also never leaves the court. Across his last 5 games, he's 4th in the NBA in minutes, up around 38 per game. So it seems hard to imagine he's not going to break 50 DraftKings points tonight.
All right, Matt, which guard has that building block potential?
So I've given the chalk play already for both positions so far. I'll go a little more contrarian here. I don't think too many people are playing John Morant tonight for the matchup in Milwaukee against the Bucks, but Memphis is missing a lot of players. We have Desmond Bane and Tyus Jones out for health and safety protocols now. Dylan Brooks is already out with an injury, so I think that the cheaper Grizzlies will be popular. I think that Morant at 8,900, though, is not someone people are really going to want to pay up for. It's not an especially good matchup, especially if you bring Drew Holiday back in, who's questionable tonight. That's probably the person that's going to be guarding Morant head-to-head, but there are so few players on this Grizzlies team now that can score, and especially in the backcourt, that if the game is going to stay close, if the Grizzlies are going to be competitive, Morant is going to have to take on a larger role than normal. So I think the upside for him is very, very large. And at 8,900, which is a little more expensive than he's been, I don't think too many people are playing him either.
All right, Garion, which guard are you going with?
Yeah, I think this is a nice spot for Ayo Dosunmu. I know he's been amazing his last 2 games. He's had 11x value in both of those contests. So to say he might go a little overlooked, that might raise some eyebrows. But I think his price point has gotten to a point, it's $5,800 tonight, where that's going to scare some people off. The fact that Alex Caruso is going to return for this game, I think that could also end up scaring some people off, even though I think there's a very high chance that Caruso has some sort of minutes restriction tonight. And just the fact we're talking about a 13-game slate. I think Dosunmu can kind of get lost in the shuffle just a little bit. But this is someone who has played over 38 minutes in each of the 2 starts he has made the past week with no Lonzo Ball, with no Zach LaVine. I mean, even with Caruso back, the Bulls still just have a really lengthy injury report. And I think that Dosunmu's going to have to play over 30 minutes in this contest, and he's already shown that he can contribute in a bunch of different ways. He grabbed 10 rebounds in one of those 2 starts. He dished out 10 assists in the other of those 2 starts. I just feel pretty confident in saying that he's someone who can bring back 6x, 7x value tonight.
All right, Nick, which guard are you rolling with?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the Hawks Timberwolves game. Trae Young at 9.8K. This is actually probably my favorite play of the night, as much as the Timberwolves have done well against opposing point guards this season. This has the highest total. I said this before on the DraftKings Sportsbook tonight, so you've got to try and get a little bit of that action. I know there's a lot of value to be had elsewhere. If you're looking at studs, this is a good spot to go for it. This is a pace-up spot for the Hawks, too. I mean, I know that the Timberwolves are, 10th in pace right now this season, so this is a good chance for Young to go and get a little more shooting. But more importantly for him, he's done really well distributing the ball this month. I know he had a couple down games from a fantasy standpoint fairly recently, but by and large, he's done well throughout the course of the month, so I think tonight's a good night to back him.
Garion, 13 games in the slate. We obviously know there's a lot of studs to choose from here, but what about if you were deciding to build your lineup around a value play? Is that a strategy you'd be interested in? And if so, who is it?
Yeah, I mean, Matt already mentioned that the Grizzlies are going to be a popular spot for value, and I would agree. I don't think this is a sneaky play by any means, but I think you have to look at John Conchar. He's $3,600 tonight. They are just missing virtually every wing in their rotation. I mean, it's Dylan Brooks, It's Desmond Bane. It's Kyle Anderson. Tyus Jones just got added as well. Like, the annoying part about the Grizzlies, generally speaking, is how just balanced their rotations tend to be. I mean, Conchar was someone who across the Grizzlies' last 3 games was 4th on the team in minutes, but that only meant 24.4 minutes per game. I just don't think they're going to have the capability to run the 11, 12-man rotations that they generally like to run. And Conchar is going to end up having to play somewhere in the realm of 30 to 33 minutes tonight. And for someone who's shooting 59% from three-point range since the beginning of December, for someone who we have found out recently is an above-average rebounder for his position. I mean, he's someone with a 13% total rebound rate so far this season. I just think there's a lot of ways that Conchar can reach value tonight, and probably just going to be osmosis if he's playing that many minutes. So it's hard to ignore him at 3,600. He's my favorite of the Grizzlies value plays.
Nick Buchanan, who is your favorite value play?
Yeah, so coming into the show, I was looking at Spencer Dinwiddie because he has a chance at a revenge game tonight going up against the Nets. I know he didn't take advantage of it earlier in the season, but I think tonight's a great night for him to do that. As much as Bradley Beal does impact his usage rate, I think his assist total on DraftKings Sportsbook, taking the over on that tonight, it's at 5.5 right now, is a good way to go. But Garion is right, and Matt was highlighting it earlier too. The Grizzlies are the way to go tonight. I think that Conchar is a great one. Melton's another one, and as much as Brandon Clark isn't the first guy you think of when you see 2 guards getting pulled out, I think with Anderson out as well, this is a good spot for Brandon Clark as well. He's a little bit more on the expensive end, so Conchar, Melton, those are probably the top 2. Also in the Wizards-Brooklyn game, to go back to that, Day'Ron Sharpe at 4.4K too. He's been providing 5 times value in 4 of his last 5 games. He's been getting a lot more minutes too. He's starting for the Nets too. So I think as long as Kevin Durant is out now too, and you're still kind of dealing with some confusion at the big spot in Brooklyn, I think that this is a good spot for him, and the Wizards are not good against bigs either.
All right, Maddie, can you bet around value on this slate?
Yeah, I'll keep this one quicker since we kind of talked about these guys a bunch already. But D'Anthony Melton, John Conchar on the Grizzlies, 36 and 3,700 respectively. A lot of people are going to play them, so I actually think you can go to Jarrett Culver, who's $3,000. There's not much else after these guys. Like, it's Morant, it's Conchar, it's Melton. If there's foul trouble, if there's a blowout, if there's just someone playing poorly, Culver really, I think, is the only wing they have behind them on the depth chart, and he certainly will be a lot more contrarian than the guys I just mentioned. So I think pivoting to Culver for GPPs, he's the flat minimum. If you want to pay up for some guys that maybe other people aren't paying up for, need someone cheap, Culver at 3,000 makes a lot of sense.
All right, let's pivot to the sports book. Nick, what's your favorite NBA bet on the sports book tonight?
So coming into, again, I was looking at the Grizzlies game for this one, but I've actually seen movement now where it was at 6.5 last I checked, but until right now it's at, they are 6-point underdogs. So it's going in the opposite direction I would have thought with what's going on with, but I know it's bench moves. But either way, the Thunder +7 against the Spurs tonight. I might even consider the Thunder straight up against the Spurs tonight. The Thunder are one of the best teams against the spread this season. I know they just were 10-point dogs going up against the Mavericks, and they lost by 2 in that game. They cover often as road dogs, 19-9 against the spread after losses too, which they're coming off of. The Spurs are good as home favorites, 6-3 against the spread, but on equal rest, the Thunder are the superior team, and they're just, in general, the Spurs are a little over 500 against the spread, but not enough for me to not back one of the best teams against the spread this year.
All right, Matt, favorite NBA bet on the DK Sportsbook tonight is?
So Nick just alluded to it, but I'm going to go with the Bucks at -6, and it's somewhat contingent on Drew Holiday returning. I think that's why we haven't seen this line move, is that Holiday is questionable tonight. He's been out for COVID protocols, and it sounds like he's close to returning. He's been questionable for conditioning, I think, a couple games in a row now. But assuming he's back, I think we will see this line move a lot in Milwaukee's direction before the game starts. Maybe it gets up to -8 or if not higher. I think it does deserve to be higher than that because Memphis is low-key just like missing everybody, and Ja Morant is the biggest name on the team. So if he's there, I think the public in general just doesn't seem to worry about them too much, but all of their depth players now, for the most part, are out. Tyus Jones and Desmond Bane being the most important ones. So I think that Milwaukee should be able to win this game comfortably if Drew Holiday plays. And even if he doesn't, I still think 6 might be a little bit too low of a spread.
Garion, favorite NBA bet?
Yeah, I'm going to go with a prop. So I already talked about how the Raptors are essentially running a 6 or 7 man rotation right now. It's generally all big guys. They don't have a lot of shooters, and that kind of creates a pressure on the couple guys who can shoot on that team to stand behind the three-point line and provide some spacing. And we've really seen that with OG Anunoby as of late. His three-point prop tonight is 2.5, and it's minus 125 to the over. He has cleared this prop in 4 consecutive games, a span of time where he has attempted 41 three-pointers. I don't think that's going to change tonight. I guess the one variable, would be, does Gary Trent play in this game? So maybe reevaluate if he's eventually ruled available. But if Trent is out, I think Anunoby clears this number pretty easily.